Here we go, Russ. This is part two. Last week, we got to spend some time with Brad and Cory from C3. Basically, they're just like you and me. They're fans.
Yes, they are. Yeah. Love talking
Isn't
to
that-
him. We
Yeah,
talk to
these
him
are
so
the
much. Yeah, that we're splitting it up into two parts. So today you get part two of that conversation.
part two. I didn't know where our conversation was going to go. I knew we were going to talk about some changes because that's what those guys do. I mean, Brad is the director, festival director, and Cory is the marketing director. So, you can't get any closer to the source than those guys, right?
No, you can't. And I felt like we could have talked to him all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because they're just fans.
Hmm.
And that's what I thought last episode was so great because I mean they started as fans and then got jobs,
Hmm.
basic, and now they run the thing.
They
So
do, but they're still
it's pretty
fans.
cool. And they're still fans,
Yeah.
exactly. Part two, we get a little more in depth about some of the changes. They were on with our show. They were on our show last year to talk about some of the camping and ticket buying changes, the a la carte as we're calling it. And in this episode, now they talk a little bit more how that went and what they're doing different this year. And essentially, if I remember right, it's just more fine tuning, right? They felt like last year worked, and so there's some things to fine tune, more water stations in some
Yeah.
areas and Jamtrak, some changes to stuff like that.
Right. The first year after you make big changes like that, there's always going to be hurdles, especially with communication, just letting people know things are different. But for the most part, it sounds like everyone, was happy with the changes and it went
Right.
well. So they're keeping a lot of that and just fine tuning it, like you said.
Yeah, not to give too much away because really want you to listen to it, but we hear um, again some of the things that stood out for this conversation from this conversation for me and you was that more than 50% of people who attend Bonnaroo are first timers,
Hmm.
which blows our minds because everyone we talk to has been forever and loves it and will always go. But that's an important point because it's a different, mindset, right? When you walk in there as a first timer, that place is huge and it's overwhelming,
Oh,
and
yeah.
just navigating it can be overwhelming, and knowing what to bring and all that. So, and that's where, listening to a show like this and getting some pointers, hopefully, like bring shade, bring water.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think eventually this year we'll do an episode like that, do's and don'ts, what to bring, checklists, and all that. I think that'll
yeah,
that'll always be helpful.
for sure. And the other thing that I came away from with this part of the conversation is the idea, because we've talked about it over and over, how much programming they do out in the plazas and how you could literally spend all 5 days, 4 days, whatever, um, just out there and have a great time.
Yeah.
But to hear Brad talk about it, they know that, but they're also having to sort of step back and think, we paid a lot of money for Post Malone or the Red Hot Chili Peppers or whoever, and so why are we programming against ourselves?
Yeah.
Basically, that's an interesting new dilemma, right?
It is, yeah. Well, you've almost got too much happening, and like they
Right.
said, they know that 20 to 30% of the people at any given time are out in the campground, so they want to have something. They know not everyone's in Centeroo all the time, but yeah, you don't want to spread yourself too thin or make people
Yeah.
decide if they have to go in or stay out
When they spend all that money,
when they spend all
I
that
mean,
money. Yeah. Hmm.
it's a reality. Yeah, makes sense. Anyway, it was a great conversation, and can't thank those guys enough. And I look forward to seeing them on the farm as well, and probably checking in with them again later as we get closer,
Hmm.
and maybe we can get Brian and Steven on again. Those are the guys from C3 who actually booked the lineup.
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
They've been guests. They've been guests before, and that's always everybody loves talking about the lineup, and we'll see if we can't make that work. But All right, here you go. Part two of Brad and Cory from C3 Presents. All right. So let's get into. So a year ago or so, you were kind enough to join us to talk about the changes, and I'm going to try to bring everybody back up to speed. At that time, we were sort of calling it a la carte, sort of ticket buying. Are you still comfortable with that sort of description, or is there a better
Sure.
way to? Okay. So for people again catching up, that was you decided to break up how you bought your tickets. You could buy a general admission ticket to get into Centeroo, which would allow you to see all the main shows and do most of the things, but you could also upgrade your camping experience, right? If you wanted an air conditioned tent or yurt, you could upgrade and get that. Um, what are some of the other major things? I mean, it would really you could tailor your own experience the way you wanted to do it,
You could
right?
buy whatever Century ticket you want and pair that with whatever kind of camping you want. There's no kind of packages that you had to sort through. Just
How did
you
it
want
go?
this in Centeroo, you want this in Outeroo. It went great. We ended up selling basically every single elevated camping option that was available last year. And then we're sort of tasked with finding a way to grow that program this year. I think a lot of that makes it easier for people to travel by plane, or carpool from longer distances without having to bring a ton of gear. And I think just like if you're maybe in your 40s or something and want to go see the show, and like me, I'm not gonna crash on somebody's floor anymore. Like I'm gonna need a bed. I'm gonna need some air conditioning at night. I'm gonna need to get a good night's sleep, or I'm gonna be in rough shape. And so I think it's kind of helped people be able to plug into that and make the experience, the camping experience, a little more comfortable. And then if you just want to go into Centeroo and just experience it from the crowd in the back, wherever, sit under a tree, listen to some tunes, like you can still do it that way. And then we had a lot of people that they don't really care about where they camp. They just want somewhere to sleep. They just want to get close, they just want to get close, or they want to have somewhere in Centeroo where they can go kick back, because they're planning on being in there for 18 hours and seeing 35 bands in a day. So it's just really let fans sort of like completely customize their experience based on how they interact with the festival. And it's honestly just really silly that we didn't do it earlier, in my opinion.
Well, I was going to ask that. Was it a scary thing? Because it was a pretty big break, not just for you guys, but for the industry. I mean, I'm assuming there's probably some others that were toying with some. I know, like Disney, you can kind of tailor things around, but for festivals, it was a pretty big break, right? And I know, and I want to ask you about what the reaction was. Some people see those numbers, the dollars signs, and we talked about this on the show. I think some people forget people have money. Some people don't
Yeah.
mind spending a little bit more for air conditioning or a nice bed, right? And they can afford it. So it's not like everybody's trying to think of how they can get by on the cheapest. They want comfort, right? I mean, how much did that play into the decision? And that's probably three or four questions thrown at y'all at once, but I'll let you answer.
I think the key came down to um, being able to let people prioritize how they want to experience the festival in the most cost-effective way. So if you can afford to have the AC and you can afford to, buy a platinum ticket and have a lounge inside Centeroo with free food and viewing at the stage and golf cart rides and all of that, right? Then that's great. But let's say, you know, you want to have the nicest camping possible, but you also don't care about, you want to be in the back of the GA viewing at the stages, then now you have the option to do that. Where before we made you go all in or not, or be out. Like
Right.
we made you make that choice. But now we let you pick how you want to experience it. If your priority is comfortable sleeping at night and you want to be sweaty in the middle of a GA pit at the main stage, then you can do that. If you want to be in VIP viewing at the main stage and you don't care to sleep in a sweaty tent out in the campgrounds, you can also do that. Whereas before we made you go all in.
Right.
If you want the nice camping, you're going to have to pay the price to also have the good viewing and vice versa. So I think that was the key, is just literally creating as many options for fans to have as possible, so that the financial barrier of entry might be able to, although some of the things on the higher end might have increased a little, the overall barrier of entry from a financial standpoint actually lower. So I consider it a big success. It was definitely scary, mostly scary for me. I don't know Cory's thoughts, but my concern was just the education piece. It was a lot to communicate and get people to understand. It wasn't that I ever thought people would be against the idea. I just thought it was going to be really tough to really explain to them what we're doing and why we're.
Yeah, it was new.
Yeah.
But
It's all new.
But Cory and the marketing team, though, I mean, they're the best in the biz, and they knocked it out of the park with that piece.
I think at the end of the day, too, it allowed us to create, that map interface on the website now that works better than anything we've ever had. Like, the only way we've had to present this information in the past is just like a list. You just go on there and it's a long list with a bunch of things that are named that you don't understand. And you literally have to go through and read each one of them to see exactly what you're getting. And there's all these contingencies about which kind of ticket you have to be able to do this, etc. And if you go on other camping festivals websites, you'll find the same thing. It's like really confusing to see like exactly what you need to like bring your car to this place and go see music. And I think last year it was a really exhausting, like heavy lift process to, change something that's been working a certain way for 20 years. But I'm really, really glad we did it. And we haven't really got any negative feedback. Really, we haven't got anything except positive feedback from fans. I know there's some people that, are really content with how the old VIP system functioned. They liked having that campground over there and stuff. And
that'd be
that's,
we're still
that's a bummer.
931.
Yeah.
I hate that people lost that. But I do think as you evolve and change, there are compromises that have to be made, and there just wasn't any other way around it. You either have to stay coupled or decouple. And
what was the your biggest positive surprise, and what were the biggest sort of complaints or negatives or challenges or whatever that you heard about that?
I think a lot of people didn't realize how noisy it was going to be over next to Where in the Woods.
Yeah.
So the kind of like first couple rows of some of those up close camping maybe were a little louder than folks expected. So I think a little more messaging about bring your earplugs probably be good on our part. You might see me out there Thursday passing something out, maybe.
Well, we were next to Calliope for a couple of years.
Yeah. I was back there too. That was wild.
Oh yeah.
Those Sunday mornings, it's time to get up or don't go to sleep.
That was pretty relentless. Yep.
Yeah, but that's all right.
But yeah, everything else was positive. I can't think of a whole lot. Actually, like last year, we do a bunch of surveying, and whether it's feedback on what people want from the lineup next year, or what facilities, like we got some information last year about maybe there weren't enough restrooms in this part of the campgrounds or not, and we'll be able to address that this year, stuff like that. But overall, the scores that we got coming out of Bonnaroo last year were much higher than what we used to. Some of the best scores we've ever had when you looked at a consensus of everybody that filled out those surveys. So it just told us that, what we're doing is right. We're headed in the right direction. All these upgrades to the farm are getting noticed and making people's experience there easier, more comfortable. And it's making it easier for people to come back year after year. So we're proud of that. I'm super proud of the production team and Brad and, Shelby and everybody out there who are working tirelessly to make that happen. ultimately make my job easier. Yeah, it was really, really positive coming out of last year.
I'm going to come back to some of that, but but it just occurred to me, how did the early entry work? Because that's a huge change. And I know why. You guys, for people, first time listeners, the entry traffic has been an issue since the very, very first one, when traffic lined up for miles and miles and miles on I-24. And so you've always been trying to figure out a way to get people in quicker, off the street, so to speak, and into their campsite. And so you went to it started, you could get in Thursday midnight, and then it was Wednesday during the day. And then this year you asked people to pick a day, whether Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. So kind of an early, which for people, and again, we love the logistics. That means you guys have to deal with thousands of people on Tuesday and Wednesday when music doesn't even start till Thursday. So you've got bathroom, you've got food, you've got volunteers, you've got staffing. How did that go for you guys?
I mean, listen, what we do in Manchester from an operational and traffic perspective is nothing short of miraculous. I think that people really, really don't understand. I mean, like, think about this. Think anyone out there listening that grew up in a small hometown. Think about if we parked the Super Bowl close to your local Walmart. We've got 30,000 cars that come into the festival in a matter of about 48 to 72 hours. 30,000 cars. That's more than an NFL game, right? And if you've been to Bonnaroo, you know we don't have mega highways flowing into them,
No.
right? We've got 2-lane roads.
Yeah.
So
a couple in and a couple out.
Yeah. So Blake Harris and Jim Tobin and all the guys that put together and work with Tennessee Highway Patrol and the local police and the Sheriff's Department and all of these agencies, I mean, they have the hardest job. It is a Herculean task that they do to make this thing run smooth. And when you look at what the early entry has done for us, we talked about this, I think, before. You know, our map from this past year, the data that we had showed that nobody in line at any point, even at the busiest point of loading the festival, waited more than probably about 2.5 to 3 hours to get in. That number pre-pandemic was 14.
I waited eight my first year, 8 hours.
Oh, we've heard 17, 18. Yeah, absolutely.
We were there. We were having a good
so
time.
If you want to talk, if you want to talk about the real headliners at Bonnaroo, we need to put the traffic team up there on top, probably, because they are serving the people the most.
But again, just logistics, which is again what we love. Once even they're in, that means you got to deal with them. So it puts another level of burden on you guys. I think I can say this now, but Ashley Capps, the aforementioned, we talked to him about this 10 years ago, and he said, I think that Wednesday early thing is the worst, and don't talk about it. But he said, I think we're going to have to go even earlier. And it was because of that extra burden of staffing and all that you guys were going to have to deal with. But it sounds like it deals with the traffic issue. So, one problem fixes another and creates another kind of thing.
Well, and some shows will actually charge you more to show up early. And I think that's something that we've looked at a little bit differently. We're like, I don't really get that mentality. Like, sure, it costs us, more to host people, and, people do want to be there earlier. But at the end of the day, it does.
Taco would leave. Taco would leave today if you would let him.
I'm already there.
It does help us keep the wait times down. So it's like charge the same, let people stay an extra day or two, have a good time, enjoy the farm for longer. It's a win-win. That's kind of. I feel like that's the Bonnaroo spirit.
Mm-hmm.
How much?
Yeah, baby. Some shows, we won't mention any by name. Some shows want to make you pay more to show up early. We want to give you a little bit of a break to show up.
Yeah.
Well, and I've always said that about Bonnaroo. I don't feel like you guys have your hand in my wallet, and that's important to me. You don't have your hand in my pocket. How how much, and I just lost my train of thought. How much you mentioned, Cory, I think it was, who, you do the surveys and
Mhm.
everybody's going to say, yeah, we listen to them. But how much does that, well, let me put it this way. The other thing that I've always appreciated about you guys is it always has sort of felt like always, if somebody has a good idea,
Mhm.
you're willing to listen.
Yeah.
Our friend I am Bonnaroo, David
Oh, yeah.
Bruce, the photographer. I don't know who on your team, heard about him or whatever. Was it you? That's awesome, and said, this guy's doing great things. Daniel and Charlotte with the Real Robust, you guys seem to find out about people that have good ideas, the beer exchange.
Yep.
And, you don't try to squash it. You're like, how can we embrace this? How can we help you? We don't want the liability. We don't want to do it. We don't need anybody else, but you want to help work with it. So how do those things happen in your meetings?
We just hit people up, man. It's y'all's home when you're there. If we hear about something cool that happened the previous year, we just actively try to find whoever was doing it and get in touch with them and be like, hey, what do you need? And that's been really successful, and helps really just strengthen that community, I think.
Listen, when you go to a new city for the first time, you don't go to the McDonald's and ask the guy where you should eat at, right? Like this festival's built on the fan. And as much as I appreciate you all giving us a pat for reaching out and getting people like Bruce and others involved, like it also takes a lot off of mine and Cory's
Well, that's
plate,
what I've always said. It's free programming. It's free programming for you guys. So it's, let's be honest about it.
And it's organic.
Right.
It's 100% organic, right? Which is what Bonnaroo is all about.
Yeah. That's what we've always enjoyed.
Yeah. It's the music and arts festival, and it really helps strengthen that and arts part of it. Not everything is lineup and headline related.
Yeah,
very true.
Absolutely.
Russ, you mentioned David's list. Are there any questions? I'm not seeing them on my screen, but maybe you're getting. Anybody making comments that we
do have a few comments and questions. We got a lot of people to say that they appreciated the lower entry times, getting in a lot quicker, especially RVs. As far as questions go, we've got a couple about the screens over on the this and that tents.
That's a good one.
They seemed to be missing this past year.
Bradley, where are you at on it, brother?
Here's what I will make. Here's what I will say to that, and then we'll move on to the next question. Trust us.
Trust us.
We hear you loud and clear from
Horton
last
hears
year,
a who, huh? You heard.
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear from last year, and we are already working on it.
All right.
So
heard chef. All right.
Good to hear. Yeah.
What is there another one, Russ?
Let's see, video screens, and then any time frame on We're in the Woods announcements and anything else to add to the lineup.
Yeah, I would look for that probably late Feb, early March. And don't hold me to those dates because that is not booked yet. But I will also say, drop a little, inside info here that we saw what people were asking for on Reddit and Instagram yesterday when it comes to the EDM lineup. And we're definitely putting some priority into the bass side of things as we're wrapping up that We're in the Woods lineup. So, no
Nice.
promises because it always depends on availability and who's willing to do it and everything. But we definitely saw that in the feedback, and we're working on it. So,
all right.
And then I'm curious too. This the Mars Volta, they jumped out at me.
Yeah.
Do we know if that's going to be like a late night set?
I don't know what time that is.
The schedule is still being put together. This is a little bit of insider baseball, but you all may or may not know this. But when we first reach out to book an artist, the option is that we're saying, "Hey, can you play Friday or Saturday?" And then sometime before the lineup, we finally get the day nailed down, and then it takes us a little bit more time to get the actual slot nailed down. So the schedule. 100 plus acts, it takes a lot of pieces on the board to be shuffled around. So I don't really know where that one's going to land, but it's going to be a good time regardless.
That's in my top 5
Agreed.
for sure.
Agreed.
Well, and we've talked to Brian and Steven about those conflicts, so that gets into that as well. So they try very hard, but as they've told us, they might think band A and band D don't conflict, but the four of us might be, how can you put those two on so things like that happen.
We need a dang panel of people to figure that out, probably.
You'd never get it right.
Yeah, that's impossible.
How can you put Cory and John Batiste at the same time? Don't you know that Cory and John Batiste fans have a very
Those are my two favorites of all time.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? How much change is there? Okay, so we had the change last year with the a la carte. How much has it changed this year? Do you guys feel
you
like?
Mean as far as are you talking about things that are going to be changing on site, or just big
that whole
picture?
camp? Yeah, big picture. Does it feel 2022 to 23 felt like a big change with the a la carte? How big is that change feel this year from last year?
I mean, Cory, you add on to this, but I think it worked what we did last year. I think we're going to try and maintain that and settle in and continue to find little things to tweak here and there. The biggest change, which you've probably seen some comments on socials about for this year, is that we came back off of doing the daily tickets. So you're not able to buy a daily ticket anymore. You can still buy daily parking where you don't have to camp, but you have to buy a 4-day ticket. You can't buy a 1-day ticket. The reason being behind that is we really had an inflection point last year coming into this year where, we feel like we've come out of the turbulent time. The ship is back in the right direction. And we really felt like we needed to focus on what this festival was built to be, which is a 4-day camping festival. And part of that commitment to being a 4-day camping festival is, as much as it might exclude some people from the experience, that we got to focus on that being what the option is. If you want to come to Bonnaroo, we want you to experience as intended, which is as a 4-day camping show. So that was kind of the decision process behind that decision.
That was another one of my questions. Thank you.
How about Jamtrak? That was another one of my notes. I know that was kind of that was on some people's, because it was a one-way route, and some people, if you got in, like say gate 1, you had to go all the way around to 12 or whatever. So it was an hour or more.
Jamtrak is going to stay. We're tweaking how the route works. We're actually doing some research on how subway systems in larger metro areas, the thought process behind how those run. As funny as that sounds, I mean,
no, not at all.
That's exactly what we mentioned.
Yeah, the system is in place, but we're definitely going to look at tweaking the routes and where it goes and when it goes there, and see if we can fine tune that a little. But the program as a whole is not going anywhere.
All right, trying to think.
I enjoyed it. I liked riding it last
Trying
year.
to think of anything else. The only other note I have, and it kind of goes back to the very first conversation we had today, is driving home to do this. It cannot be overstated, I don't think, how much this festival changes lives. The four of us, for sure. Yvonne that we talked to, David Bruce that I talked to. I mean, there are people who have careers, because of this festival, but also attitudes. And I'm in that camp. I remember leaving after the second year thinking, why can't people be this way all the time? And then have sort of tried to dedicate myself to it, from little things like just picking up a piece of trash, or walking that extra 10 feet to throw something away, to saying hello to somebody, or to letting somebody get in front of you in line if they had to go leave or something like that. So, and it kind of goes back to what I was asking you, Brad. I mean, there are tons of music festivals, but they don't all have this thing, do they?
No, they don't. I was trying to find it. You all may have saw it. I posted this on my personal Instagram yesterday. There was a Reddit post that went up, I don't know, maybe an hour before the lineup yesterday. That there's been posts like this in the past, but this one it kind of got me. There's a post yesterday called that just says buy the ticket. and it's about this guy who lost his father last year, and basically he kind of talks through how like Bonnaroo was that place for him, that he was like in a really dark place, and he just had to make it to June. Like he just had to get there, and he knew things were going to be fine. And it just, if you go read the comments on that post, it's all these other people saying, man, I was in the same place. I'm so glad you're here. You're going to be fine. I love you. I hope I see you on the farm. And when I go and read posts like that, man, it gets my engine going like so much. Like
I saw
that's
that
what
exact
I'm
post.
here for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. So that's a very, I hope it's not lost on people that is a very special thing that is not typical of something that a festival brand has as part of its identity, is that community and what it represents for people. That's so much more than just a music festival. So it's really special. And Cory and I think both share the sentiment that we're extremely honored to be able to work on it, and for somebody, I don't know who they are, they probably don't have their job anymore, to trust us with steering the ship every once in a while.
It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't ask you both. I kind of drove the train, or drove the Jamtrak, so to speak. Is there something I didn't ask you guys about, that some detail, some new thing, something?
If you want to go, make sure you get your tickets. I definitely expect us to sell out again this year. And based on the way things are going, maybe earlier than last year even. So just want to make sure that everybody who wants to go gets to go. And then I just want to say thank you to you guys, and just to the community. It's really fun reading the comments, and seeing people defend this idea of Bonnaroo, and this festival and place that they love, and actively encouraging others to go. And Brad was talking about how, like, our audience spans from people who went in 2003 to people who went in 2023. And that's a pretty big gap. So I think it's important, for those who have been before, and, really understand the traditions and history, to pass it along. Make friends with someone who's going for the first or second time, and who doesn't know the ropes. Help people out, give someone some tips along the way, teach them some of the traditions, and just try to, keep it going as long as we can. It's a really special place, and it's a really, really interesting, unique thing. So yeah, just wanted to throw out a nice thank you to everybody who's participated in that over the last 20 years and loves this thing as much as we do. Because it is really special.
Along those lines, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Daniel and Charlotte again with the Real Rubus and the Totem program that they have started, that I know you guys are involved with as well as I am, to help do what exactly you just said, to help groom the next generation, and to pass on this information, and help ease people in. I know the ultimate goal is to make it international.
I think my parting shot is also thank you, but I also had put some thought into picking 4 performances out this year that I think I want to put on everybody's radar. So I got one from each. Yeah, I got one from each day. I'm just gonna go by day here.
I want to do this too.
For the
also,
rock fans. Yeah. So Thursday for the rock fans, I'm gonna say you got to check out Michigander. Great guy, actually lives in Nashville, from Michigan, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's my Thursday pick. My Friday pick, I got to shout out TV Girl. They've been getting a lot of heat right now. That's going to be a really great show. Saturday, before you get ready for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, you got to go see Ethel Cain. Really transformative performance, I think, that you'll see if you go check that out. And then on Sunday, outside of being extremely ready for Fred again, early on that day, I'm assuming he's probably going to open one of the tents. Don't know the schedule yet, but Jake Wesley Rogers. You're going to want to check him out. I'd honestly say he's got a little bit of he does it all. piano, everything. He's really inspired by people like Elton John, if that helps give you a little bit of direction on what he's inspired by and what he might sound like. So those are my 4 shout outs at the moment for sets over the weekend that you don't want to miss.
Awesome. Cory?
Good. Yeah.
Sorry, Russ.
I was just going to say those are good. Those were not on my radar at all, so I made notes. Thank you.
Yeah. So I, all that said about how we've changed a lot since 2003, I am kind of the resident jam head. I've got 2 framed No Freeze McGee posters over there on the wall for anyone interested. So I will say Thursday, go to Eggy. That's going to be probably the headiest jams on the farm this year. If not J-Rad. So make sure you go to that one if you're wanting some jam. Friday, I'm with you, Russ. Mars Volta for sure. They're one of my favorites. Just some intense prog experimental. But then also, I'm super psyched for Thundercat. I've never seen him. And then Saturday, I was gonna say Ethel Cain too. Actually, she's like my new obsession. So good, so spooky vibes. But also Parcels. I think that's gonna end up being one of the shows of the weekend. And then Sunday, I was gonna say Fred. I saw like 10 minutes of his show at Lala. And I was at a terrible spot and could barely see, could barely hear, and I still got sucked in. So I'm super excited to see that at Bonnaroo because it's going to be such a special, unique show. But also Charles Wesley Godwin. Saw him at Railbird this past year, and it was high energy, intense country music, and it was awesome. Boy, I'm psyched about it. So yeah.
Nice. All right, Russ, do the same. One each night.
Yeah.
Let's go, day by day. Let's see. I'm going to go Gore on Thursday.
Yeah.
It was probably my pick, yeah. It's Friday, probably either Kurungman is definitely on my list or J-Rad. Crazy Elephant for Saturday, and let's see, of course, back the Mars Volta, like you mentioned, went back the other day. Where Jason Isbell's on my list for Friday or Sunday. Who else we got? Yeah, I think and John Baptiste, of course.
Yeah,
like we mentioned before.
Yeah.
Ours
is
Where
very.
else are you going to see John Baptiste and Gore on the same?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ours is very similar. I'm going to go Gore on Thursday, Krungbin Friday. I'm going to do a walk by Maggie Rogers just because my daughter is such a huge fan. Maggie's one of the few that Grace will travel to go see and has done it a couple of times. So
she's got some deep Bonnaroo ties too. If you go on her Instagram, she posted a really cool post yesterday talking about some of her memories. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, she did a live. Yeah, that little voiceover type thing. Cool. John Baptiste. Where else am I going to see him? Like you just said, Jason, I've seen. Fred again, I have not. Kind of looking forward to the Megan Thee Stallion kind of thing.
Yeah, there you look.
Yeah, let's go.
I love it. That's so fun for people again who don't understand, and it's kind of we're preaching to the converted here, I assume, if they're listening. But where else do you get to see that kind of variety all in one place, right? You know. All right, guys, man, we love it so much when you guys join us. We love seeing you at all the festivals. Good to see you, Brad, at Boone River as always, and hanging out with you guys. And thank you for giving us so much time. I don't think I asked anything you couldn't answer, right? I don't think so.
No, you hit us with they were softballs. I appreciate
We'll
that.
get the bank account numbers later. And all right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great whatever, and we'll see you in 5.5 months. All right. That's a lot of fun.
It was. Love that.
Yeah. those guys are great. It's kind of they answer anything we ask. They're happy to do it. They love it. You can tell. You can just tell they love it as much as we do, right? It's not like they're, hey guys, whatever, hope you buy a ticket. I mean, they love it.
They do, yeah. And like I said, I feel like we could have spent all day talking with them, and they would have had a great time too, just because they like talking about it.
Yeah, they're fans. It
Yep.
makes a big, big difference.
Mhm.
All right, well, there you go. Season 7, right?
Season 7, it's underway.
We
Unbelievable.
are deep
Yep.
into it.
Mhm.
Coming up, we're going to have some we're planning our shows. We're going to have musical guests. We're going to have artists. We're going to have more fans. In fact, I think next episode we're going to have a friend of mine who's gone since 2018, works as a photographer, but she's a fan. It's just that kind of that's what we want to do, right? Just
Yeah, I like that we have a good mix of not only artists, but also people that work the festival, that put it on, that just attend as fans. You get the whole rounded, you know, gamut of people that go.
yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's it. We will see you guys next week. Thank you. Thanks to Consequence. Like, share, and review, and do all that stuff.
Mhm.
Helps us out very much. And Russ, I love you.
Love you too.
All
We'll
right,
see you next
see
week.
you guys.
Consequence Podcast Network.